Hi guys, in this video I'm going to attempt to prove the type I got for Dr. Ian Smith. Almost 20 people, as well as Dave and Shan, got him as an ESFP jumper. I got him as an ENTP, and I'm still going to put forward my evidence for ENTP. To start, her name is Jessie from Bow Ties and Books, and she'll be reviewing his book called The Ancient Nine, a book that Dr. Ian Smith wrote about his time at Harvard.
In this book, we are following a young black man who comes from a poor neighborhood in Chicago. He works incredibly hard and is accepted into Harvard University. But once he gets his foot through the door, a secret society reaches out to him and offers him to become a part of their vetting process. Little does he know, this club was founded in the 19th century by some of the country's most powerful tycoons, and out of all of the secret societies that exist at Harvard, this is not only the oldest, but the most elite. This is the cream of the crop, y'all. And as he starts to realize the influence of this club, how everybody who becomes a part of this club is in a wild position of power, makes it onto Forbes list, becomes politicians, senators, etc. They go on to become wildly successful, absolutely drowning in money and jewels and everything that their hearts could desire. But within this club exists the Ancient Nine, which is a group of 9 members whose sole purpose is to make sure the club's deep, dark, dirty secrets always stay buried. And when Spencer begins digging into the case of a young boy who mysteriously vanished while trying to break into this very club in the early 1900s, he ends up on their radar, having to solve the mystery of what happened to this boy before he suffers the same.
So that sounded like an EP story. We're hearing a lot about secrets, secret societies, hierarchies, money and jewels. That sounds like an EP.
So the main...
In addition, we saw a lot of evidence for EP with double deciding. We well established that he's an EP in Dave and Shan's class. And I agree that he's an EP because I see a lot of the double deciding and a lot of the Rolodex talking. The question is, which EP is he? Here he is on Sway in the Morning talking about his book, The Ancient Nine.
Character is me, Spencer Collins, who's a kid who's single mom, other side of the tracks, who mysteriously gets invited to join the process. Now, let me just tell you, just because you get punched doesn't mean you actually make it in.
Yeah.
So each club starts with about 100 guys that they punch, and then after every event, there's a series of events, cocktail parties, dinners, lunches. They whittle that list down to the final 15, 20, and then they get the final letter of acceptance.
And then what happens?
And then you get into the club. And then you see, for years, students have tried to break into these mansions.
Yeah.
Because of all the valuables and the treasures and the artifacts and all the rumors. So you never can go into the club until you become a member. And so initiation night, which I don't want to say too much, but in the book, because it's in the book, initiation night, you finally get to go up into the club. And the last thing is the Ancient Nine. So the Ancient Nine is a group that for years has been rumored to be a secret society within the secret society, and they protect the secrets of the club. And this student, me, is trying to figure out how all these things are connected.
Man, shit.
He's trying to figure out how all the things are connected. This book is very imaginative. A lot of people compare it to the Da Vinci Code. I would think any would like to write a book like this more than Essie. But as we see from people like Greg Plitt and David Goggins, sometimes masculine NI at the bottom is very intuitive, very interested in secrets. So let's continue.
I don't know if I'm hanging out with you. I know we're going to Chicago for this conference this weekend.
And we're going to be hanging, too.
No, I don't know about that. Stay the fuck away from me.
Is the book out?
Yeah, the book is out,
Stop
man.
following me.
Yeah, the Ancient Nine, man. I just met Dr. Smith.
In college, man, I ain't an idiot, so I know my surroundings. I knew what time it was. I seen a group of about 5 wearing the same outfit. They approached me. They were like, later on, we're going to come to your dorm. We want to talk to you. We want to recruit you for something. I said, oh, Lord, I know what this is. I went to my dorm. I thought I locked my door. I heard them banging. I ain't locked the door. They came in. I was like, man, y'all better get out of here. I ain't with that joining gang, college gang shit. It reminded me when I was down in the street. You a blood or you a crip? Get the hell out of here.
It's funny Blake say that, but is it much difference between joining a gang and joining a club like this?
Well, yeah. I mean, in the clubs, we do things like, we have like.
So just take a moment to see his face here, but let's hear his answer.
Is it much difference between joining a gang and joining a club like this?
Well, yeah. I mean, in the clubs, we do things like, we have memorial dinners. We have, these lunches. We don't have.
So do gangs.
Yeah, well,
they have block parties, barbecues.
They give out turkeys to the hood for Thanksgiving. Come on, Dr.
Okay, what else?
Democrats and Republicans, man. What side you on?
Like separated. What's different?
I'm an individual.
Well, people always ask me what's the difference between, for example, like a fraternity in one of these clubs.
Yeah.
And I say that the difference is these clubs are like sophisticated fraternities on steroids. Listen, you got guys who are dropping, $100,000, $200,000 a year supporting the club because the grad members own the clubhouse. So they fund. The university doesn't own the clubs, by the way, at all.
He seemed kind of annoyed there at that question. What's the difference between these secret societies and gangs? Maybe he thought that was just a stupid question. Or maybe he thought that wasn't very imaginative. It's like here he is imagining and creating this world, and then someone calls him and goes, oh, it's just like a gang. Well, it's nothing like a gang. He feels like maybe people aren't following how imaginative this book is. Let's get to know him on The Breakfast Club, next to Charlemagne, who we know is an ESFP with Blast Last.
Wow.
But people are supportive. My fans love me, and I just try to give them good stuff.
What is it about this one that?
Well, the Clean 20 is 20 foods, 20 days, total transformation. And what people like about it is how easy it is. So typically when you hear people talk about clean eating, they think it's going to be expensive or you can't eat any real food, like eating rabbit food, or you got to go to 5 different stores. And my list on page 16, it's regular stuff like chicken, turkey, seafood, eggs, pasta, whole grain pasta. And so people like it because the average weight loss is 10 pounds in 20 days.
How do you know what people like?
Beyond that, they drop their blood pressure, their blood sugar levels, cholesterol levels. So people just feel totally better, after eating. Because let me tell you something. Like I was looking at some of the stuff, like processed ingredients are everywhere. Like food dyes and food colorings and artificial sweeteners. And that stuff is killing us, man. It's killing us. And so when people don't totally eliminate it, but reduce it, bam, weight comes off and they feel great.
It's realistic, too. It's a realistic thing to do. And one thing...
So that was all sensory. That was a lot of sensory. Also, he's more extroverted than a lot of guests who come on The Breakfast Club. Someone like 21 Savage came on The Breakfast Club, and it took him a while to rev up to where he was rolling when he was speaking. Dr. Ian Smith comes on, and he's immediately rolling.
Just whole grain bread has got to say 100%, right? Because you want the whole grain, the 3 parts of the grain, so you want the whole grain. If you do those things right away, and change your whole milk to low-fat skin or organic milk, it'll make a difference.
What about almond milk? I love
almond milk is fine.
Some people tell you no bread at all, though.
No carbs?
Right, because, I believe that people are going to eat bread. I like bread, and so in my program, the Clean 20, you can have bread, but it's got to be whole grain bread because it has a lower glycemic index, which means that it converts to sugar slower than white bread. So it's not perfect, but it gives you something. You know what I mean? It gives you something.
Yeah.
What about peanuts?
Peanuts are great. I mean, the best are walnuts and almonds. Those are the best nuts.
I like honey roasted cashews. Like
well,
at the airport.
The honey roasted, I know they're good. The ones at the airport, you get like 2 for a certain amount, right?
I check the cal.
They come in that orange bag.
Yeah, check those calories on there and the sugar and the
I had to stop
sodium.
And they kind of, the honey roast is kind of clumped on it.
Yeah, they stick together. Or even the Planters ones, they're not good for you?
Nah, I know. Go with the almonds.
I
convert it.
I try to get them like unsalted or lightly.
Lightly salted is good. Lightly salted because you want to watch your
I'm used to the taste of unsalted almonds now. At first it was kind of nasty to me, but now I'm used to it, so it doesn't bother me.
People have to realize if you open your mind, you open your palate, it takes you a little while to adjust to it, but you start to like it.
And you won't go back.
I mean,
you know what I've been making at home that's been helping me too, and I realized I probably haven't had enough fiber in my diet before. This is quinoa.
Quinoa's great, right?
Yeah, I've been making that with yams and corn and what else did I put in it? Just a few different vegetables and.
Now, see what you just said?
Carrots.
Sweet potatoes. Sweet potatoes are great. Sweet potatoes are awesome. They're the best potatoes, sweet potatoes. You mentioned quinoa. People say quinoa. That sounds crazy. It's good, isn't it?
It tastes really good when you put all those things in it. Now,
Yeah.
by itself.
So that was all sensory. Admittedly, that was all sensory. That was a complete sensory conversation about different foods, nuts, seeds, grains, all just diet sensory stuff. But the question is he overdoing the SF? So if he is an ESFP, he should be very similar to Charlemagne. Is he overdoing the SF in comparison to Charlemagne? Why doesn't Charlemagne reciprocate whenever Dr. Ian Smith tries to connect? Why isn't there more reciprocation?
Yeah, the Clean 20 doesn't punish you.
Yeah, so me and Angie Martinez are actually doing the Clean 20. So
You're starting what, June 4th?
yeah, I'm doing
Okay.
doing it with Angie.
Okay.
So this will be pretty interesting as we
Okay.
document.
I'm going to follow y'all. I'll call in and check on you and
as
text
we
you and stuff.
document our journey. Now, you said one of the reasons why you felt it was necessary to do this, one of your friends, who's very much in shape,
Yeah.
healthy, she said she was feeling very sluggish.
She was in the gym. She was like, Ian, I can't lose weight. I feel sluggish. What am I doing wrong? I was like, you got to stop eating processed foods. And so I said, spend a week and a half of just getting rid of all the processed junk.
Right. So I believe if you watch that whole interview, what you'll see is someone who is slightly overdoing the SF. He also looks to me visually like John Jones, who, as we know, is Savior DI. So John Jones is TISE.
Father, as an athlete, I just feel great. I feel great. You know, many more championships since then. I'm still here.
So that same raised eyebrow, you know.
I'm feeling great.
Deep down.
To me, he reminds me much more of John Jones than David Goggins. Frankly, I barely see the resemblance to David Goggins, except in the audio, in his voice. Here he is explaining the COVID vaccine to Rachel Ray and her audience.
That's the Oxford AstraZeneca that has not been approved here in the U.S., but is used in Europe and other parts of the world. It's a different vaccine. Let me explain to you, without getting too granular, why it's different. The Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine uses what's called a viral vector, which means they take a real live virus, they weaken it. It's called the adenovirus, which is what gives us the cold and flu symptoms. It gives us this virus. It takes the genetic material of COVID. It puts it inside of genetic material of the adenovirus. And it's DNA, not RNA. So it takes it and then it injects it into us. And what happens is the virus, the adenovirus that's carrying the spike protein material, that then creates the spike proteins. And as you saw in the graphic earlier, then the body builds a response. So basically, it's a different
immune response.
That's right. Right. But here's the other thing. They tend to be cheaper. Those shots are cheaper. Also, it's more durable, as you mentioned, which means that it's not as fragile. So you can keep it at temperatures that don't have to be freezing like we do with the two vaccines we currently have. So you can put it in the refrigerator at 38 degrees and it could be okay. So it's more durable, less expensive, but here's the big difference. It's not as effective. Remember, the two vaccines we have are 94 to 95% effective, whereas the AstraZeneca vaccine is between 60 and 90% effective. So it's about 75% effective.
Please welcome. So clearly he has a lot of understanding of what he's saying. In the beginning there, we caught him saying, let me explain it to you without getting too granular. So that means without getting too detailed. So could this be someone who the human need is to give you an overview, and they just so happen to, say, have masculine sensory, like NE at the top and masculine SI at the bottom. They've owned the sensory, they're stacking the sensory, they keep the sensory, they remember it forever. But then the human need is to explain the understanding with NE. Or is this someone with sensing at the top, someone like Andrew Huberman or Candace Owens? When you have Savior Consume Play, as Dave and Shan say, you are a super learner. So the ESFP is a super learner when they have the Savior Consume. So they'll surprise you with just how much they can come to understand through their consumed play.
My buddy.
Here we are with Steve Harvey, another ESFP. So are we seeing Steve Harvey and Steve Harvey Jr.? By the way, Dr. Ian Smith is 50 years old. In that clip with Charlemagne, he was 10 years older than Charlemagne. So Dr. Ian Smith, he's older than he looks. He looks very young. He looks like he's in his early 40s at most. But he's 50. Even here, I think he's 50 or maybe 49.
Dr. Ian Smith. Okay, now last time you were here, man, we talked about the Clean 20.
Yes.
But now you got a new program. Tell us about it.
Clean and lean basically is where clean eating meets intermittent fasting. So in this case, 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2, it equals 3, because each program by itself is extremely effective at weight loss and reducing belly fat. When you combine them like I do in Clean and Lean, results are off the chart.
Really?
Off the chart. This may be the most effective of all my books based on the results we've been getting. Absolutely. 100%.
Because I've started to intermittent fasting.
It's good, right?
Yeah.
People are confused about that, by the way. Intermittent fasting basically is the alternation of a fueling or feeding window with a fasting window. And it doesn't mean you're starving. You're going to eat lots of food.
Right.
But you have to respect the fast, because it's during the fast that you drive your body into your fat stores to break down the fat for energy.
So this sounds like understanding to me. People are confused about that, by the way. Now let me explain what this means and why it's happening.
If you eat during your fast, your body will prefer to use the food for energy rather than your fat.
All right. So what are the most common results when people combine the clean eating with the intermittent fasting?
So in 30 days, the average weight loss is up to 15 pounds. Here's some results now for some of the people in our group. That's Diana Figueroa from Chicago. That's Jackie Strong from Philadelphia. She's from Arizona, and Jan Bell. She lost 82 pounds.
All right, now you brought us what a day of meals look like on this program, so tell us what we got here.
So I want people to realize you're not going to be hungry, you're not going to starve. There's plenty of food. In fact, some people say there's too much food. So for example, for breakfast, you can have an egg omelet with some veggies. You can have some whole grain or whole wheat bread. For lunch, things like salads, easy to find anywhere. Kinds of veggies. We have 30 foods on the Clean and Lean list, but you can swap them in and out.
30 foods.
30 foods, but you can even add more.
Because that's the people's problem. They focus on what they can't eat, when really you just need the list of foods that you could choose from, and you can eat any of these.
Absolutely.
You got a list of the 30 foods?
Page 21.
Page 21, okay, okay. I can eat, and you can eat anything on that.
Anything on that
any
list.
order.
Pizza, spaghetti, pasta,
In
whole wheat
any
pasta.
order.
In any order you want. It's that simple.
Hey, Doc, you don't know this, man, but I got a little surprise for you. Yeah, your boy.
I get the keys to one of your Bentleys?
You ain't finna be that surprised. There's someone that says your 30-day program changed his life and wants to thank you.
Dr. Ian Smith took a guess.
Ladies and gentlemen, please give it up from the Carolina Panthers, defensive tackle, T.J. Barnes. TJ, what's happening with you, brother? How you feeling, man? Yeah.
Oh, man.
So we know he's really playful, and there we're seeing it again. When he plays, it's genuine. It's not fake. It's real play. So now let's see David Goggins for contrast, since Dave and Shan typed Dr. Ian Smith as, I believe, the exact same type as David Goggins. So let's see him for contrast.
I was in 3 months.
106 pounds. So the standard for a 6'1" person back then, 6'1", I forget what it was 191.
Okay.
And I was 297. So I pretty much said, fuck this. This pretty much can't work for me, man. This is impossible. So I go back to work spraying for cockroaches, and I hit the mother load. Like, I hit the mother load of cockroaches, rodents and everything. And I go out to the dumpster, and these animals, I was like, fuck, I'm done. So I quit my job right then. The boss had to come to my, I quit. The boss had to come looking for me to get the truck back. I left work. So he had to come to my house. Okay. I didn't even go to work again. So all these restaurants, I had the keys to them all, the fucking alarm codes. All the keys were in the fucking truck. Like, he had to come by and knock on my door and say, but he brought some friends with him. I was 297 pounds. Like,
right, it's a big dude.
I need some
military
fucking backup.
Dude, right.
I'm like, here, dude, I'm out. And so I had now started my journey. And so now I'm like, I'm losing the fucking weight. But my first run
means. So the thing about TE is, apart from it being Savior DE plus Savior thinking, there's something that the TEs do, which they turn everything into tools. If you listen to Joe Rogan, for example, he'll talk about UFC fighters and how some fighters have bigger hands, and the bigger your fist, the easier it is to knock you out. So there, he's analyzing the fist as a tool. The TEs will endlessly talk about tools, and in a very pragmatic and grounded way, especially in combination with SE. You notice how he talked about he was spraying for cockroaches. He had the keys back in his truck. He had all the alarm codes for all the different places. The guy had to come to his house. So everything is very pragmatic. You have to drive on the road to get to my house, and you have to park your car, and the keys are in the truck, and I'm 200 pounds, so if you get in a fight with me, I'll beat you because I'm big. It's all this tool comparisons. I need to rent a U-Haul. I need to renovate a house. Does the hitch on the U-Haul work? Did they park a trailer on my yard? Did we get a new hose for the garden? Now let's hear him in conversation with Joey Thurman on a podcast where they're talking about health and fitness and mindset.
So how can you actually find that within yourself?
Yeah. So let me get my copy of the book here. So let me, just for the listeners, you mentioned extrinsic and intrinsic motivators. So basically external and internal. Yep. And an external motivator is that you're motivated by something that's outside of you. For example, you're motivated because you want to walk and look great on a beach in Jamaica and you want people to look at you. That's an external motivator. An internal motivator would be something like, I love to read history books because it makes me feel good and informed of reading and learning. I love to learn. So it's an internal thing. I'm motivated because I like to learn. It's not like I need to learn because I'm taking a test. That would be, once again, that's external. I like to read this history because I want to do well on my history exam and get a good grade. That's external. So, in the old days, by the way, I've kind of evolved myself. In the old days, when I first started talking about this, I always said, you need to always have internal motivation. Like, that's all that matters. You can't want to lose weight because you want to look good. You got to want to lose weight because you want to live longer, not have diseases, not have high blood pressure. And I've modified that. And now what I'm saying to people is, internal motivators are critical, but so are external motivators. So you need to have a combination of the two, external and internal, so that you have this package. And if the internal is not working one time, maybe an external is working. If the external is not working, the internal. So you have this kind of safety net that if one of your motivators is not doing what you want to do, the other motivator comes to the rescue. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So that was zero sensory, and that was purely abstract, talking about intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation. And then he was explaining the thinking of it. So that clip was purely NT.
Yeah, so what I tell people all the time is, and I tell people, listen, think about, this is my beginning to people. Think about a time in your life where you had to overcome a difficult set of circumstances. It could be finishing a college course that was tough. It could be dealing with a breakup of a relationship. It could be something like your car broke down. You had to walk 3 miles to get gas, right? Think about when you were in a challenging situation and you had to solve it and overcome it. You were motivated to get it done. You were motivated to get it done. And so that is proof to you that you can be motivated. Now, how do we...
So some imaginary scenario that we thought up 3 hypotheticals is the proof. Compare that to David Goggins, who he told you a story exactly how it happened. He told you a story, and there was nothing in the story where he interjected some imagination or hypothetical scenario. Dr. Ian Smith created a hypothetical scenario where he explained maybe you had to walk home from your car after it got broken down. The intuitives make up hypothetical scenarios.
Draw on that motivation you had. You were motivated to get it done. And so that is proof to you that you can be motivated. Now, how do we draw on that motivation you had previously and package it so that it now becomes always accessible to you in whatever your new task is? So what I tell people is there are all kinds of extrinsic motivators. It could be fame, praise, money, material rewards, getting promoted, feeling superior. These are all things that have driven people externally. Internal motivators. Is it fun, pleasurable, the experience? Is it going to satisfy you? Is there gratification? It doesn't make you feel worthy. Do you feel like you're accomplished? So people should look at what the external and internal motivators are and see if some of those work with them. And then in the rest of the chapter, I take you through how to enhance those motivators so that now they are right there. They're very readily accessible to you and you can employ them in your life.
So at the very least, that was all thinking. After that clip, maybe this could be Save Your Intuition. I think we should still be unclear on, is this Save Your Intuition or Save Your Sensory? But that really was zero sensory in that clip. And he went on for a while, compared to David Goggins, who told you a story exactly how it happened to him in the sensory.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense, because I think that people, you're right, people often do focus on one thing, whether it's completely extrinsic, external, or internal, and then what happens when that is gone? What are you going to do? You know, it's like facing your problems is why a lot of people don't like going to therapy, because wait a minute, if I fix my problems and there's still something, I still don't have my magical life that I dreamt of, I really got to face reality here. So it makes a lot of sense that you've got to just kind of dabble in both here.
And Joe, can I say this? For example, you have trained very successfully very famous actors, but then they reach this body that they're looking for, and all of a sudden they fall off.
Yeah.
Well, guess why they fall off? Because
Why?
their only motivator was the paycheck from the acting job.
Right.
And if they had maybe a couple of other motivators, a couple of internal motivators, as well as the external, they'd be able to get through. After that job goes away, they still have that internal motivator keeping them in that shape and that drive.
Yeah, I think that's what a lot of people don't understand, because, you know, some of the people that I've trained obviously were very well known, and then they would see this individual like a year later, and it's not like they were trying to gain weight for a role. You know, it's not like Russell Crowe with whatever he put on 50 pounds to look like that sloppy cop. I can't remember what role it was, but you know, like it's.
So this is a FE smile. Much more than David Goggins. Of course, he could still have TE. Tony Robbins has a huge smile. This is a bigger smile than David Goggins' smile. And then I don't know this guy's type. No clue.
Not like it was for a role. It's just like, screw it. I worked out hard for 3 months to look a certain way for this role. But I mean, you're right. That is a huge motivator. But once it's gone, then pretty much goes your body that you worked hard for.
That's right.
All right. So now you were talking about over justification effect and those extrinsic things. You would touch on that a little bit, because I think what people, they do just over kind of justify everything, you know.
So this guy's now just getting into the intuition too. Can you talk about another concept?
And then it gets to become way too much.
Next, we're going to see David Goggins, again, for contrast, with Dr. Ian Smith.
Anyway, my legs were broken. I'm sitting thinking, how the fuck now there's no walk week, I can't heal. So my idea was this. I'm gonna have to leave my house early, 'cause I lived off base. And I left early, I got to my dive cage where we had duct tape. So I put my black sock on about 4 o'clock in the morning. Put a black sock on, and what I did was I got duct tape. So whenever you move your ankle, it causes your shin to hurt if you have any issue up here. So what I did was I casted with duct tape. So I put the duct tape over the sock, and so the sock kind of protected it to give it a little cushion. I duct taped it as tight as I could, and right here at the pivot point, it created a huge pressure ulcer because your ankle still wants to move. So that tape would just dig in there. So I did that every single day because my stress fractures were just killing me. So I ran pretty much for the first 45 minutes, the most excruciating pain of my life. God. And so, but basically after 45 minutes, my legs would go numb. And when they go numb, you don't feel this shit anymore. So I went through buds like this. So now, the fucked up thing about it.
My gosh, man.
Is I get to third phase. And for some reason, man, I healed my stress fractures.
Really?
And to this day, I haven't had them ever since. Wow. But I literally, from running, and I'm not saying don't do this, but people go, how'd you get through it? By the time I got to third phase, which is like maybe 3.5 months later, when I went to third phase, my stress fractures were healed.
That's crazy.
And I ran on them. And people say, was it shin splints? No, motherfucker. I had x-rays. They were breaks in my legs.
Man.
So, and I'm not saying...
I had x-rays. There's proof this happened. So that's all ST, and that's exactly how it happened to him. There was nothing hypothetical there. There was no made-up scenario where imagine you were walking down the street one day and you realized you weren't motivated. There was nothing of that. It was just, this is what happened to me. Also, you're hearing that TE, which seems to correlate with just talking about tools all the time. My ankle is like this, and I used duct tape to fix it, and I wrapped it around, and my legs were broken, and they healed, and I don't know how. So there he's talking about his leg as a tool, and he's talking about his...
Do that.
Yeah.
But because it's very painful.
Well, most people aren't willing to go to a point where they get their body to the point where it gets numb.
Right.
I mean, you were, right?
And people say, why did you do that? Is either that or not become a Navy SEAL.
Do you think, can I...
Sorry.
So now let's go back to Dr. Ian Smith and Joey Thurman talking about whatever they're talking about.
Got off my rant. I apologize.
I do the same thing.
You asked about over-justification. And let me explain to you what that means. This is over-justification effect. Let's say you have an internal motivator. Let's say, here's the example. You work at a veterinary hospital because you love animals. And you do it as a volunteer. You don't get paid. You do it because you love animals. It makes you feel good and you like wildlife, blah, blah, blah. Let's say the veterinary hospital says, hey, guess what, Joe? We're going to hire you now. We're going to pay you. You're such a good volunteer. We want to make you a staff member. And so we're going to pay you to do this. Okay, fine. I mean, I'll take some money. So you take this money, you're doing well, you're making decent money. So not only are you doing something you like, but now you're getting paid for it. What happens sometimes is, what if all of a sudden the hospital says, listen, we got budget cuts and, we can't pay you anymore. Sometimes people will say, okay, I'm done. You can't pay me, I'm done. What's happened now is your internal motivator, which is how you started to be with the animals and to be satisfied with that, has now been overtaken by the external motivator, which is the payment you're getting. And now you have what's called the over-justification effect. And so now your external motivator has diminished your internal motivator. And that's the one thing people have to be careful of when it comes to motivation. You got to make sure that if there is an external motivator connected to your internal, that you never allow that external to overtake what the original drive was in your motivation.
So, quick, what did he just say?
Points.
This is just my personal observation, but from what I see, NT seems to... It likes to do like these pretend equations with the world or with reality. So he said on Steve Harvey, he said, in this case, 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2, it equals 3. What he was saying there is you get you don't just get linear gains, you get logarithmic gains. And the way he decided to say that was 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2, it equals 3. There, with Joey Thurman, he was talking about the pattern of over-justification. He was talking about a hypothetical scenario where like a hospital hires you and then they fire you. And then he explained how over-justification relates to internal versus external motivators. And he never said any sensory. He never was talking about exactly what happened to him the way that David Goggins does. So now let's listen to David Goggins once again. Are these really the same type?
So I had to take it again, and guess what happened? It's in the book really well. It's exactly what happened. I take the ASVAB.
This is exactly what happened.
Test, and I took it, and now they have computers. Back when I took it the first time, it's like all like Scantron shit. Yeah. So now I see a computer, so now I'm freaking out. Oh my God, it's on the computer. So I take
tools, Scantron, computer. I'm freaking out because I'm an observer.
It, and the sergeant in charge of the ASVAB test isn't supposed to tell you what you got. Okay. So I take it for my second time and my last time. They're not gonna let me take it again. So I'm now down to 215 pounds. I'm losing the weight, but now I take the ASVAB test for the second time to get in the Navy. As I leave, I get out to my car, and I'm like, this is my life, man. I gotta find out what I got in this fucking test, because usually it takes 2 days to get the results back. But they get them immediately. Once you hit send, that guy gets it right there. So I'm like, fuck that, man. I go back in. I go, hey, man, can you please? He goes, man, this is fucking military protocol. I'm not breaking it for you. I'm like, people are still taking the fucking test. I'm like crying. I'm like, man, you don't understand what I've been through, man. I'm like, this is my life. Please, I'm begging this guy, please let me know what I got. So he scrolls through, he sees David Goggins, he goes, you got 65. I go, great. I don't care about that.
Mechanical.
That was my overall score. I go, what did I get on mechanical? He goes, you're asking a lot from me, man. I go, please, man, like I have to get a 50 on mechanical. He scrolls over, I got exactly a 50. Have you seen The Pursuit of Happiness? Yeah. How that motherfucker, when he runs up the stairs and gets a job, and like your hair stands up the back of your neck because he worked so hard to get this shit? When I left that ASVAB and it's nighttime, I'm getting in my car, it felt like that.
Did it?
Something came over, it felt like I truly accomplished, even though I passed it before, but now I know I'm all in.
So there we heard from David Goggins the story exactly as it went, but most importantly, we heard him and his depth of FI, masculine FI. Just a depth of, this is my life, this, I need this, I'm in front of this guy, this matters to me so much, and I want this so bad for myself, for building what I want to build.
Title, The Power of Negative Energy Balance. In life, we want positive energy. That's karmic spiritual energy. This is different. This is food energy. So food, when we say calories in the food, that's measurement of food energy in the food. Food is energy. And so when you eat more calories than you burn off, Rashawn, you end up having what's called positive energy balance. You have more calories than you burned off. The body has to do something with that energy. Energy just doesn't disappear. That's not how it works. What does the body do with that extra energy? It stores it as fat. Fat is the storage form of energy, okay? Why do bears, gorge on food before winter comes, before hibernation? They do that because they're eating, and they're getting fatter and fatter and fatter, the blubber, because they're gonna eat that blubber during the winter when their food source is very scarce. Well, same thing with our body. Our body will take that extra energy and put it as fat. Now, that's positive energy balance. What you want to be, however, is the negative energy balance, just the opposite. So in fast burn, you're still going to have all your meals and all your snacks. However, the amount of energy you get from them will not be enough to meet the demands of your body's energy needs. So your body has to find the energy from somewhere. It says, where do I go to get energy? Oh, there I go. It goes into the fat stores. It takes the fat, it melts it or breaks it down, it converts it into fuel that your body can use. So when you're in a negative energy balance state, that is when you drive into those fat stores and break that fat down. And that's why on fast burn, not only are people losing 15 to 17 pounds on average in 9 weeks, but they're noticing 6, 7, 8 inches gone around their midsection because the book is putting them into this negative energy balance state.
So that was a pattern, negative energy balance state. That sounded to me a lot like Mark Sisson, where he's explaining the understanding of the sensory. We heard him say you want karmic spiritual energy in the beginning, and then he goes on to explain why it works. He uses a bear as an analogy. At this point, I think it's better to be thinking this is savior intuition rather than demon intuition, because he's overviewing the sensory. He's animating the sensory so that you can understand how and why it works the way it does, rather than attempting to prove. He is attempting to connect and make you understand. Now, finally, I'm going to look at this clip to see, is this consumer blast? Because one of the first things I saw with Dr. Ian Smith is, this seems like blast, because he's so good at talking and it seems like he's trying to convey his OI. But as I got more into him, I realized maybe that's not the case. So let's hear from this podcast with, I think his name is Greg Hughes, is the host. Let's hear about Dr. Ian Smith and his interest in reading.
So the first time I really realized I wanted to write this kind of fiction was when I was a freshman, between my high school and senior year and freshman year. My aunt in my small town, she's a voracious reader, and she had like a little book club, and she'd say, you should go read this, read that. And she said to me, go read this book called The Firm.
Yeah.
By this guy named John Grisham.
Yeah.
This is before anyone knew
Right.
this guy. It was, this paperback book. It was, and so I went to my little hometown. There was a little store that was a 50% off discount store. And I found out as I got older, it doubled actually as an adult shop in the back. I didn't even know that. But the front half was all these books that were hardcovers that were half off. Holy cow, like, how did they do this? Anyway, so I went and got The Firm. And when I got that book, I'm telling you, I was driving in my car in my little town, and when I'd get to a red light, I was trying to get sentences in. When I went to a stop sign, I'm trying to see, okay, can I get turned to the next page? I was doing all this crazy stuff. And it was I was so involved and engrossed that I said to myself, one day I want to be able to write a book that can capture someone's attention or desire and imagination like this guy did. I didn't meet that, but people who have read the book so far have said to me, I really wanted to keep going, and someone just said to me, he was up to 3 o'clock in the morning, and this guy doesn't even read.
Right.
Trying to see what happens in the next chapter. So that
But
makes you
it
feel good.
definitely has a John Grisham feel to it. Absolutely. So I don't think I even knew you went to Harvard.
You didn't?
I don't think so, because you don't brag about.
So I think we can definitely say this is savior thinking. And from what I just heard there, he's reading a book at a stop sign. I think he has savior consume. Dave and Shan thought he was savior consume. So I think we're on good authority to type him as savior consume. Now, Dave and Shan have typed 4,000 people. I have not typed 4,000 people. Dave and Shan are really teaching us how to track typing. Just as much as understand people's types, they're teaching us how to track it over video. And so when I'm getting all these mixed signals, it's hard for me to track what's going on. But I think that this is either feminine NE at the top with masculine SI at the bottom. You heard him with that last clip. He told the story exactly how it happened. He was in the reading store. It turned out to be an adult store, but he didn't know that. And then later he's driving on the road and he's reading his book at a stop sign. So that was a scenario exactly how it happened. At this point, we have savior thinking, so we can eliminate the feelers. I think we have savior play, so we can eliminate consume sleep. We have savior consume, so we can eliminate play blast, which is hard to see, but I think this is play consume either way. And he's not blast last. He's rolling just fine. He's very extroverted. So that gets him down to these 4 types. And we still have all 4 EPs on the board. We still have an ENFP, an ENTP, an ESFP, and an ESTP. I'll continue the rest in the next part of this video.